Are we all ready to go? Thank you. Thanks very much for accommodating us, us moving you to a fireside chat and now bringing you here. But it does make sense because we have the technical side of things to sort out and to accommodate the different languages that we have. It's a true honor to be here. As I was explaining earlier on, this panel has actually evolved over time. It started off as a response to what we're experiencing in this country, where it actually felt like women were under siege, women and children. And as mothers, we said, we complain, but what can we do as women? We then went on to say, what is the core reason, the cause for all this aggression, the violence? And for those that are not from South Africa, we have one of the highest rates of femicide, which is a woman killed by a man just because she's a woman. If we are compared with other countries globally, our rate of femicide is 5 times the global average. You then ask yourself why. In this country especially, I'll focus on this country because I know every country has its own context, though a lot of similarities exist. But in this country, it's frowned upon to talk about our past. It's frowned upon to talk about apartheid. And the funny thing is that you go anywhere in the world outside Africa, and people talk about their atrocities all the time. They have monuments. They remind each other where they come from, because we need to remind ourselves where we come from for us to ensure that it never happens again, and it also galvanizes us to be a better people. So when I looked at it in preparation for this, I actually believe that the violence brought about by apartheid dehumanized us, men and women. And I don't think other races were spared, because when you see a fellow human being as a lesser thing, not even human, something happens to you that removes Ubuntu from the person that you are. So, and my submission is that in spite of all the good things that our government has done, there is an element of me that believes we put reconciliation first, and we didn't deal as well as we could have, if we did at all, in terms of just rehumanizing us, telling us that we are human, you are okay. Everything that you don't have is because of what you were deprived of. I think that's important, especially for generations that come, where you stand in Alex as a child that doesn't have a background as to why we are here. And Alex, by the way, is Alexandra, a township that is just very close to Sandton. So you have upper middle class and working class. So if you are an African child sitting there looking across and looking at how the haves live, and you don't have context, you start doubting yourself. You think there's something wrong with your race rather than the history. So context is very important. So what do we then do? I think now I'll just go to my prepared notes, which set the scene for, as African mothers, how do we rehumanize the African? How do we make the African voice heard? What does it take for us as African mothers? It's the continued inequality in the community breeds hopelessness, and violence against those that are physically weaker. That is women, children, and LGBT community. When all your life you were told you are nothing, and you also have nothing, it's difficult to love yourself. I really believe that it's self-hate that allows the atrocities that we witness in this country. Rehumanization has to be deliberate and persistent. It starts with telling our stories, reminding ourselves where we've been to ensure that we never go back, as alluded to earlier on. As a country, we have a lot of priorities. One of them is pursuing the STEM subjects because we believe that's where innovation will come from. That is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. While that is fine, we shouldn't neglect humanities, because if we have to rehumanize our society, and in my view, that's one of the key things we need to do to develop the human capital that we have, we do need to invest in humanities as well. If you look at just the social workers we have in the country, all skills in the country we have a shortage of, but when you just focus on one, that is social workers, we have less than 20,000 that are registered. And if you look at what is recommended by the UN based on the number of people in the population, we need 70,000. If you look at the number of police stations now coming to gender-based violence and the different ways of addressing it, while we have 1,138, only 16% have the competency to deal with gender-based violence. So those are some of the areas where, as the mothers, we need to alert our governments to. We will not achieve equality in a culture that perceives women as less, a culture that sees men as leaders and women as subservient to men, a culture that doesn't put value in women's unpaid work as a contribution to the family and society, a culture that sees it as normal to pay women 75 cents, and in some cases less, to the rand that is paid to a man who does exactly the same job with a similar qualification, if not less, overlooking women for deserved promotion at work. All these forms of abuse against women are equally important if we are to tackle gender-based violence holistically, with the intention of it being eradicated in our lifetime. As ambitious as it seems, it has to be our target if we actually want to have an impact. It is our role as women in changing the culture that perpetuates women's perceived inferiority to men. What is our role as mothers, as changing gender role, as in changing gender role stereotypes as we raise the boy child and the girl child? When we send our daughter to get married, what is our message? Do we give a similar talk to our son when they start families? When the boys go to the mountain for circumcision, different cultures in the continent and in this country send the boys at a certain age for circumcision. And I'm told that the conversation that the boys have with the men in those spaces is not something that actually promotes equity between men and women. Is it not time that both men and women are involved in that space? My submission today is that the justice system and all other stakeholders and sectors of society are only part of the solution. Sustainable change will come from the evolution of culture. Women, as custodians of culture, have a major role in driving that within families as a start, and then spreading it to society. We have representation from different parts of the continent with different cultural norms that continue to oppress women. I listened yesterday to different encounters that the different sisters from different parts of the continent were sharing. What is our role in changing that? One of the things I listened to yesterday was what I believe is the future leader, future president of Somali. But she's being held back. That is Ms. Fadumo. She's being held back simply because she's a woman. How do we collectively change that? As a woman, when you raise your hand to lead, men try everything to demonize you, dehumanize you, to prove that women are less. Allow me to use Mam Winnie Madikizela Mandela's quotation as far as patriarchy is concerned, to challenge you. I quote, "The overwhelming majority of women accept patriarchy unquestioningly and even protect it, working out the resultant frustrations, not against men, but primarily against themselves. In their competition for men as sons, lovers, and husbands. Traditionally, the violated wife beats her time and offloads her built-in aggression on her daughter-in-law. So men dominate women through the agency of women themselves," close quote. The onus is on us to create a continental platform that becomes the voice of African women, the king and queen makers of Africa. And I thank Sis Zanele for having this platform. It's not many times that you come across such a wide representation of women from the continent. And I applaud her for doing just that. When a woman runs for a presidential position, we should use media to rally around her, to humanize her, to drown down the voices that seek to dehumanize her. Those that were there yesterday will know what I'm talking about. This is the power that we have. We just need to use it. November should be a time when we take stock of what we have been able to achieve during the course of the year. Because throughout the year, we should be in communication, using our platform to talk to each other, set targets as to what we would like to see, and feedback at this plenary in the following year. According to McKinsey, just to paint a picture as to what it means to hold back women, not just women, but also the global economy. If you look at the study by McKinsey, they say in a full potential scenario in which women play an identical role in labor markets to men, as much as $28 trillion, or 26%, could be added to the global GDP by 2025. This is enough to bridge the climate finance gap, which stands at about $585 billion per year by 2020, and $894 billion by 2030. What will it take to do the right thing for the economy and humanity as a whole, globally? Of all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the most important is SDG 5, which is achieve gender equality and improve all women and girls. To quote Madam Zanele Mbeki, we are the ones that we've been waiting for, working together to build what others have destroyed. Our panel and the women in the room will interrogate how we as African women can rehumanize the African, how we can be the agents of the change we want to see, how through doing that, you'll have more trade amongst the African countries. We'll have more trade interregionally. I'll hand you over to our facilitator, but before I do that, I just want to thank the women that are sitting here as panelists. I really appreciate spending your time to come and share your thoughts and ideas. And the women that have joined us here, it's a collective discussion where we hope by the time we're done, we'll have some idea as to how do we rehumanize the people that we nurture. Thabisile Phumo is the former president of the Public Relations Institute of Southern Africa and Inspired Connect Women's Network. And she's also the recipient of the Public Relations Industry Award, the Best Pan-African Campaign. She will introduce the panel and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much. I would like us to play a video now, which will just set the scene for what we're dealing with. It might be set in South Africa, but I think it's happening in all parts of the world, not just the continent. Thank you.
The Seriti home. Thabang and Matlakala have 3 children. Matlakala works at the Soul City Clinic. Thabang is a teacher and a role model in the community.
Thank you.
Oh, good morning.
Morning. It's the first day to your new school, eh?
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. Come over here.
That's fun.
Hey, you in. Look at it. What's my Lina on my night? What's the message?
Hello, Dad.
But the Seritis are not the happy family that they seem. Thabang abuses his wife emotionally and physically.
It's just that you say under pressure.
Matlakala. Go to the Toruska discuss a business yaka. It's between you and me.
Thabang, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Thabang.
Useless. How mammy, Matlakala. Wow, someone.
Oh, no. No, that is stop!
Matlakala. Wow, some mammy. What's a kitty man? Also, torto man. How long? Let's about it. We are matsatsi o tla utlwisisa hore ha o le monna ka tlung ya hao o tlamehile ho ba jwale ka mokaptene o seng jwalo se ke tsona sa hao se tla nwella o utlwisisa boy
Masakane clinic now. Going through.
Matlakala. Kuzakalini?
Nginceba kunenix.
Hlaki ungathaki nanix. Bekunjani une-blue eye ebusweni?
Nginceba nanto.
babysitting It's not my type of job.
The abuse continues despite Tabang's promises to stop, and the community outside witnesses silently.
It's none of our business.
Mrs. Ritchie, we see a lot of violence at this hospital. A lot of it domestic violence. Women being hurt by their husbands or boyfriends. In fact, it has become so common that I've started to ask all women who are injured if they need help in this respect.
Doctor, I told you I was marked.
Okay. Look, I brought your number to phone if you change your mind. Or perhaps you know somebody who needs it. It is a common problem, this. I'll see you later.
I used to tell myself that it's gonna get better, you know, everything was gonna be okay. I just needed to do the right thing.
When Matlakala hears the story of another abused woman, she recognizes not only the physical injuries, but also the self-blame, that all too familiar damaged self-esteem. It is a turning point. She takes the big step of challenging her neighbors at a community policy forum, with her father by her side.
Unconscious. Ndizamile umemeza ndifuna uncedo. Akho nomnye kodwa apha kunondincedileyo.
Le ndoda inkula usana lwam. Sibambile. Kodwa inyuka isehla khululekile. Amapolisa amabili ebefanele ukuba aphethe le case awakenzi into even today. Bathi xa bethetha, it's a private matter between husbands.
Mr. Switch.
Yes?
Ngivela kwa-Sheriff Department. Ngine-court order ekumele nginike yona.
Empowered by the new Domestic Violence Act, Matlakala gets a protection order against her husband. This time, he gets a shock.
This protection order.
Is that the police station?
You think this is going to stop me, Matlakala? You think this piece of paper is going to stop me? Jonga. Eh? Do you see what you've done to me? Eh? I'm going to tell you what you've done to me. What is happening between me and you? It's got nothing else to do with anybody. I'm going to tell you, that's brilliant. Hey, you. Man, hey, you cannot, man. She's my wife. Argument in the Matlakala, Twinyan fell actually.
You have been served with protection order.
Take a mistake into the Matlakala. What you told a mistake?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ufuna kuvulela case for indodakho. Mr. Serit. Ufuna kuvulela case for indodakho ukuthi aku-assault.
Assault?
Yes. It is against the law, Mrs. Serit. Ukuthi aku-assault. Siyazwana. Ungamvulela case.
Ngamameli Matlakala lento sayilungisa sayithetha kakuhle endlini.
Okay.
Asingene.
Let's go.
Thank you. This video never feels different every time you're watching. It's a tearjerker. May I just ask the technical people to do the lights, please? Thank you so much, Dr. Judy, for the introduction. And I think for those who are not in South Africa, this video is just telling you how, when we talk about women being dehumanized, it manifests itself in society. And what you don't see is that, at least in this case, the society stepped up. But there's a lot of societies that are abdicating because this is a private matter. There's lots of families that are actually supporting the sorting it out between couples because of the stigma that comes with women taking up their rightful place. I'd like to thank you for joining the panel once again. The conversation once again, and introduce the members of our panel, starting with Tsitsi Masiva. She is a philanthropist and a social entrepreneur devoted to empowering young women in Africa and education opportunities, and most importantly, access to technology, which is what we're talking about. Welcome. And our next panelist, if you are in South Africa, she doesn't need any introduction. She's one of our pioneering women business leaders, Irene Shanley, who's a former trade unionist, an astute businesswoman and a social entrepreneur. She's currently the president of the International Women's Forum of South Africa. I was hoping we could acknowledge them. Thank you. Sitting next to her is Dr. Motlalipule Natane Taulela, who's a senior lecturer at the University of Wits, a social worker by training and a published author. Thank you. And we are joined by Tandiwe Matthews, who's an admitted attorney, researcher and academic with experience in the private and public legal sectors in South Africa. She's currently the senior researcher in civil and political rights at the South African Human Rights Commission, where she's focusing on the advancement and protection of human rights. Thank you, ladies, for making it today, but I think we just need to get to the chase. I mean, the conversation is fairly simple. It talks to two key things that I would want us to thresh out. The first one is women's rightful place. And we need to just perhaps reflect, depending on your level, your different sectors that you're representing, what is that rightful place? Because I think when we start by understanding what that rightful place is, we are then in a better position to go back and figure out why are we where we are today. So starting with you, Tsitsi, what do you believe as a businesswoman, a philanthropist, and somebody who plays a big role in society, what is the woman's rightful place? And how do we, going forward, put her back in the place where she belongs?
Thank you very much. Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. A big hand and shout out to Mrs. Mbeki for Sister Zanele, our sister, for putting this together. This is truly a unique opportunity. And thank you for the audacity to do this to provide this kind of platform and this kind of conversations. I always say every human being represents the ultimate portrayal of beauty. Every human being matters, whether you believe in God or not. When I'm a Christian, when God created a human being, he said, wow, this is just magical. However, when you then look at where we are at, fast track to how women live, how they are represented, where we are at, we are a far cry from the reality of who we are. We are a far off reflection of the beauty, the majestic way in which a human being is. We, as incomparably beautiful as we are, dogs are treated better. Animals have better rights than what women have. Men are respected, the system respects, the laws respect, the traditions respect anything that is male. And why has that happened? There's so many issues, and there are many people on the platform that I believe will articulate it much better. But at the end of the day, for me, it's we have forgotten what it means for a person to be called a human being. We have defined humanity in terms of sex, in terms of color, in terms of social status, in terms of language, in terms of physical shape, makeup. The slimmer you are, the better, the bigger the nose, the more African you are, the darker you are, the less of a human being you are. And if you have a certain type of belief system, there's a pecking order. All these things that have brought a lot of confusion, added to that is the physical, the way we physically, mentally, and spiritually we relate to one another. So if we've already dehumanized each other in our own eyes, then the way we relate in terms of our behavior, our attitudes, reflects the dehumanized aspect of what a human being is, number one, and what a woman is. And this starts from birth. When a child is born and it's a girl, already the world separates. You are more celebrated if you're male than female. As you grow, there are norms, behaviors, definitions, all that just define a way that undermines and lacks any form of recognition for what how how women or girls are portrayed. Let me fast track to how I see the way in which we can best begin to picture ourselves and think of how best I as a woman, you as my sister, would want to be seen or treated. I just want to highlight the 3 or 4 key points. Number one, I believe that we need to redefine what a person is and redefine what a woman is collectively. Once we agree, that's the message we send to the rest of the world. We are persistent, we are consistent, we don't stop. We need to take a long-term view of that way in which we define ourselves. It cannot be something that is done at a conference, at a workshop, or done, in a short term or in a scattered way. We need to take a long-term view of how are we going to change the way we are seen, the way we treat ourselves, the perception, how the image everybody has of what a woman is. Just take, for example, in business, simple thing like Coca-Cola. It has no value to anybody. If you drink a Coke, it's more likely to do more damage to you than it gives you any benefits. Yet it is portrayed in a way more respectful way than a woman. It is given more space in our minds, in our homes, more than a woman. It's reinforced in our communications, in our minds. A child, the first thing they know when they see a Coke, it's a drink that when you're thirsty, you must have. And yet, to what extent are we reinforcing and building a picture and an image of the beauty of a woman, the power of a woman, the compassion of a woman, the nurturing qualities of a woman? I think I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. And I think you've stepped into the next conversation, which begins to talk to the redefinition and the image of women. But I want to move on to Irene. What is the woman's rightful place in the economy? Because I think once we get to see what that looks like, it becomes easy to pick up on what Tsitsi was saying, to claw back rather and redefine what she was indicating. So what do we look like in the economy?
No, thank you, Tabasile. And I want to just start off by saying, woman, you are beautiful. You are beautiful. The only thing that stops you from getting wherever is yourself. Nobody. It's yourself. You are the one who decides, I can't do this. You are the one who decides, I don't want to speak to somebody else. You are the one to decide where you want to be. You have the power. You have the power to make the decision and to take the action. Why is that? Because you are the same woman that if somebody, you have a child, somebody wants to hurt that child, even if it's a lion, you will step in front and defend that child. And yet, when a man hits you there, you think that he is in control of you. So when we talk about the workplace, and I've been in business for a long time, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I'm a businesswoman, like many of you. In fact, more than 51% of the world population are women. It's you, not men. It's you. Where is it then that you are going to control and take control of your destiny? So as far as I'm concerned, just to stay on topic, as far as women are concerned in the business, every board, if there's a company and there's a board, in my view, that board of directors must reflect our population, which is 50%. Even 51% of boards should be women. If there are people who chair the board, and South Africa's advanced a lot, and so has other countries in Africa, but we have a long way to go in terms of the representation of women on boards of companies. Whether these companies are unlisted or whether these companies are listed. It has to change, number one. Number two, when you talk about people who are the chairperson or chairman of the board, it has to be a woman. Why can 50% of the chairman of these boards not be women? I want to see those companies having women chairing these boards. When we come to the people who manage these companies, today in South Africa, and it is no different to any other company listed anywhere else in Africa, if you take the top 50 companies on the listed stock exchange, how many of the women, of the chief executive officers are women? In South Africa, I can tell you now that in the top 50 companies, there's not one woman CEO. And yet, there are women who can manage these companies. So there's a long list. I know we're going to have a lot of discussion, but I think there are specific things that we can start changing in our society, within business, that we can start changing. But at the end of the day, I always say, we are the ones who are going to drive and fight for collectively and individually to ensure that we get there. So a last issue that I wanted just to remind the woman, everybody thinks that business is out there. When we talk an income statement, a balance sheet, it's so foreign. And yet, every single woman that are here in this room and that will fill the room later on, and all the women out there, every single day, you are managing an income statement. Am I right? You say, no, we don't. But you do. You are in charge of your income, whether you're at home, whether you are working or whatever. There's income that you get. You have to decide, how am I going to spend that income that I have. In companies, they call it revenue. It's income. You have them, whether it is kwachas, whether it's naira, whether it is francs, whether it is ZAR or dollars, you get the income. You have to decide, what am I going to spend this money? It's school fees. It is your rent or your bond, your car, it's the food. You have to decide which ones take priority. And you have to balance the books at the end of the day. You have to say, I am going to be short of money, or I will have extra money at the end of the day. If I have extra money, which is a little bit of your profit, you are now going to spend it on a holiday, or you're going to save it for a rainy day. You manage it every day. And that is why, if you give a woman anything to do, you will see the change, a positive change. If that woman is in business, and it has been proven statistically, and the statistics are here, Judy mentioned, when you have a woman as a CEO or as a manager, a senior manager, it has been proven that the profitability of that company goes up. In fact, there's a statistic that say that in cases where 30% of companies are managed by a woman, their earnings have gone up by about 26%. Why? Because you manage money every day, but you don't realize you're managing your income statement and your balance sheet every day. So I will stop with that and just say, but the rightful place is women. Take your rightful place, then the world will change in a positive way.
Thank you so much, Irene. I think we need to give a hand for debunking the myth of the economy. Because when we talk the economy, people think big picture issues. It starts in the kitchen. It starts with feeding the kids. But you raise a very critical point, which I would like Tlale to also talk to, the representation. We need a seat on the table. So clearly, in the economy, women need a seat on the table. Tlale, you are representing women in society specifically. What is our role there, and what is standing in our way of getting to our rightful place?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks also to Ma'am Zanele for organizing this, and it's such a privilege to be in this space. So I think to respond to the question, the reality is, as women, we were sold a lie and we bought it. We were told that we are inferior. We were told that we don't have the power to make decisions. We were told that we cannot lead. And in most cases, we believe that. The reality is we need to open our eyes to the role of women in society. And I'm talking about Africa as a continent. And we need to open our eyes to the contribution that women historically have played in society. And I think, particularly in the context of South Africa, when we talk about the rightful position of women, the next thing that you hear, and this in most cases comes from male counterpart, that we need to empower women, we need to empower women. I think women are empowered just by being women and in their creation and in what they produce, in what they contribute to society. We are empowered beings. But the reality is that we grow up or we live in a society that tells us to believe less about ourselves and what we can bring to society. And a practical example, when you are a woman in any society, you are responsible for child rearing, for childbearing, for being the leader in your home. In any society, who looks after the sick, who looks after people who are grieving and mourning? It's women. But when you raise the same child, when it's time for lobola negotiations, when it's time to make decisions, you are told as a woman that you cannot be in the room. but yet you were responsible for all these important stages of a child's life. So I think our rightful place, we need to recognize that we are women, and singabantu, we are beings with soul, you know? And for us also in acknowledging our rightful place, again in the context of South Africa, we have to reimagine what Africa was before colonization. I was at an event and someone was unpacking the meaning of the word inkosikazi. So today we know inkosikazi to mean a wife. The literal meaning of inkosikazi is the female ruler. So when the colonizers came to Africa and asked, okay, so who is this person next to a ruler? And they said inkosikazi. The word was changed to mean a wife. And yet inkosikazi is the female ruler. So we need to reimagine an African woman before colonization. We need to, during the session on Monday, Advocate Mujangu Gumbi reminded us of powerful African women who led wars, who were decision makers, who were strategic in their contribution in society. So I think we need to stand on the shoulders of those women and reimagine what it feels like or what it is to be in positions of power. And I think the important thing for me also is when we are in boards, when we are in society, we need to be in the room and we need to make our voice heard. Because there's a strong element of tokenism in South Africa. We have women in this boardroom, but what is your voice? So my view is, and this is the role that I play in any setting that I'm in, I want to disrupt. I'm asking why. I'm asking questions when decisions are made, because it is often taken for granted that we've allowed you the space to be in the room, so be grateful. So we need to be intentional as women when we are in spaces where decisions are made, and we need to engage power thoughtfully. You know, so once you've been allowed that space in that boardroom, in that committee, in that executive committee, you need to change things for other women. There's a saying that we say in the space where I'm in academia, that we cannot be happy to be the only one in the room. We need to send the elevator down. You know, when you are high at the top, send the elevator down to bring other women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is actually very sobering, especially in a country like South Africa, where we have one of the best constitutions in the world, the best laws in the country. So looking at where you're coming from a human rights perspective, Tandiwe, I mean, really, what is going wrong here? Because the systemic issues seem to be dealt with, at least on paper, but the reality is something different. Because if you tag on to what Tlale was saying, we should be there, we are there, but something is not working. Is it that our human rights culture or rather laws are out of context or too early for a country that we are?
Thank you, Tabi. I've prepared some notes, so I'll refer to them, and I hope that I do answer your question as thoroughly as possible. Throughout Women's Month in August 2019, South Africans expressed outrage at the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide gripping our country's landscape. Protests demanding that the government urgently address GBV were held across the country following the brutal murder of university student Uyonene Mrwetyana. Uyonene's murder in the public post office brought to the fore the fear that women experience in the country when just living their lives, performing their daily activities. However, this is not the first time that South Africans, and especially women and gender non-conforming persons, have highlighted the dangers associated with being a woman in South Africa. In August 2017, then Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Mduduzi Manana, apologized for assaulting a woman at a Johannesburg nightclub. In February 2018, a woman protester was kicked by a political leader of the ruling African National Congress outside the ANC headquarters at Luthuli House and in full view of the media. Despite the numerous campaigns and interventions by government and civil society organizations around GBV, high levels of sexual assault, rape, and femicide still occur in South Africa. So as Dr. Dlamini said, GBV affects both men and women. However, the primary targets of GBV and victims in South Africa are women and adolescent girls, exacerbated largely due to gender discrimination, coupled with their lower socioeconomic status. Women, therefore, have less resources to avoid or escape abusive situations or seek justice. The UN has further defined GBV as a form of violence that seriously inhibits women's abilities to enjoy rights and freedoms on a basis of equality with men. In 2016, according to the World Health Organization, South Africa had the 4th highest female interpersonal violence death rate at 12.5 per 100,000 in the world, after Lesotho, Jamaica, and Honduras, which was the highest. In response, the presidency under President Ramaphosa hosted a summit to further understand the issue and subsequently released a declaration to end gender-based violence and femicide in our country. He's allocated 1.1 billion rand to fight the scourge. Flowing from the declaration, an interim steering committee on gender-based violence and femicide, comprising members of the government and civil society, has committed to clearing backlogs of forensic laboratories related to sexual assault, hiring additional staff at sexual offences courts, Tutuzela care centres, and relevant assault units in the criminal justice system, the procurement of evidence collection kits, shelters for members of the LGBTQI community, and more victim-centred training for state officials. Some of these interventions are not new, but it does highlight the need for continued monitoring of the government's prioritization to tackle gender-based violence. In a report entitled Unpacking the Gaps and Challenges in Addressing Gender-Based Violence in South Africa, released in 2018 by the South African Human Rights Commission, it highlighted how gender-based violence inhibits the ability of women and girls to access other constitutionally guaranteed basic human rights. According to official 2015 statistics, an estimated 30.4 million South Africans, or 50% of the country's population, lives below the poverty line of 1,000 rand a month. And as noted in our National Development Plan, and with respect to women's economic development, social, cultural, and religious educational barriers prevent women from entering the job market. Access to safe drinking water, electricity, and quality early education, for example, could free women from doing unpaid work and help them find jobs. As further highlighted by the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women in South Africa, the violence inherited from apartheid still resonates profoundly in today's society, dominated by deeply patriarchal norms and attitudes towards the role of women, which make violence against women and children, especially in rural areas and informal settlements, a way of life and an accepted social phenomenon. So my suggestion, Thabisile, is that we must all work together to monitor and evaluate the measures undertaken by the state to promote and protect the rights of women and girls towards the advancement of a society infused with the values of justice, dignity, and equality. And to do so, we must remember that the credibility of any government's response to gender-based violence can be sourced back to the strength of its laws, policies, and interventions, and the manner in which they are prioritized and implemented. We must promote the adoption of reforms to strengthen measures to prevent GBV, and these measures must include gender mainstreaming approach to budgeting, policy making, and standard setting in both public and private entities. Thank you.
Thank you so much for lending us, for lending us into how this dehumanization represents itself, because in our society, we see it through gender-based violence. And I want to go back to you, Tale, and ask, 2 decades later, after apartheid, we still find ourselves here. What is the genesis of the dehumanization of women, particularly looking at the issue of gender-based violence? Why are we here? Where did it start?
I think we are in this situation because for a very long time, we were a violent society. So no one can deny that historically, especially, when we look at the past 450 years of marginalization and oppression and disenfranchisement of Black people, the reality is violence was the nature of society. In schools, we were violent towards children. In institutions, even in the way through lynching. So violence was it permeated all the different structures of society. And because we believed that that's the way of resolving conflict. and therefore it is in our history. And so 20-something years or past democracy in post-apartheid South Africa, we find ourselves in this situation because we have not dealt with the root cause of this violence. So we see this violence in the media, we see this violence in institutions of society. And when children grow up in that violent society, they think that the only way to resolve conflict is through violence. So we need to find ways of detoxing this level of violence. And also there's the theory that talks about the transgenerational transmission of trauma. So this trauma and this violence has been passed through from one generation to the next. So if we are to deal with this form of violence, we need to first acknowledge that we have a problem. So a move towards any change, you have to first recognize that there is a problem here. And that problem is that we are violent towards women, we are violent as a society towards a girl child. We are generally hard on a girl child and on women. You know, the standards are not the same. And once we acknowledge that, for me, that's the only way we can move further. And also, for me, I think the media plays a powerful role in this context. How does a child watching television in a family and they witness a violent scene, and there's no adult who can process that violent scene, what is imprinted in the mind of that young man or young woman is that, okay, this is an acceptable way of doing things. So if we can understand that at the core of who we are, or the roots of us as a nation, was a violent one, and we need to find ways of dealing with that violence and healing from that violence, and also evaluate some of our cultural practices and ask ourselves questions that at some point in our lives, maybe some of the cultural practices served us as a society. And at the current moment, these can no longer serve us or can no longer be acceptable. How do we move forward and engage and say, this is not an acceptable way of doing things, and actually be willing to change?
Thank you. Irene, the topic we never talk about is the violence in corporate South Africa. It may not manifest physically, but what do you see as a role of corporate South Africa in particular in perpetuating the violence? If you take, for example, the fact that there's workplace bullying. Men and women get bullied, so as they say, the bullied becomes bullies. Is it a breeding ground for the physical manifestation of the physical gender-based violence that we see today? And can you, as a representative of corporate South Africa, maybe to the panel admit that we have a violent economy, an economy that's based on debasing the human rights of the lesser human beings?
No, thanks for that. I think the first issue is, I mean, we talked about just violence and the effect of apartheid. Remember, apartheid was violent. Violent in terms of the discrimination and what they did to people generally in society, because women in general they are oppressed worldwide. We are the same. But then on top of it, through apartheid, it even had, and in women there's religion, which partly have an oppressed woman, or it has an impact in terms of women, negative impact. There's a culture, and then it's exacerbated by the violence of apartheid. Less spent on the girl child or a boy child, if you're black, very little money was spent on education, whether it's on healthcare, on the economy. All of those things impact. Now just imagine all of that going through into the corporate world. You actually have a whole society that are discriminating against women. So I'll give you some facts. I mean, you spoke about the whole femicide. South Africa has the highest femicide rate in the world. We are the 4th. We are number 4th in the world. I wasn't aware until I looked at the numbers. It's shocking. And I'm sure the academia, I mean, these statistics are there. If you talk about and then we talk about the workplace. I mean, sexual harassment affects more women, we all know, in organizations than men. But let's look at the statistics. They say 30% of women versus 18% of men report having been victims of unwanted sexual advances in a workplace. Let's look at this more. It also, sexual harassment all in the workplace also go unreported. We are saying 22% of women in the workplace, and I actually think it's higher than that, keeps quiet about sexual harassment. If you have to be offered a job, you need the money, there's advances, people keep quiet in the workplace. A third of women do not report it because they know when they report it, management of that company will not address it. They don't. So in addition to everything that you experience at home, you still have to do at the work. There's some further statistics. There's only 56% of women that confront at the workplace the harasser, and then 16% reports the incident. Now, let's go now recently, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange did a survey amongst corporate South Africa listed. So when I say I'm in business, but we are fighting for transformation for women. We're not there on the other side. We are fighting to transform the industry, to transform business, etc. The other issue is 51% of workplaces don't have a clear sexual harassment policy. They don't have it. Now, the other issue is there's no hotline. Very few, only 20% of businesses have a hotline where sexual harassment at the workplace can be reported. Only 20. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. If you take the statistic, when we take the other side, we say these are clear things we need to ensure we change within the industry. Now, we spoke about laws in our country. We have the most, actually, progressive laws in South Africa in terms of, whole interventions, whether it's the Domestic Violence Acts, all the various acts that we have. And yet, it is policies that are very poorly enforced. So when we take that, and I want to give you an example, I always say statistics speaks for itself, that only 35.5% of sexual offenses are actually reported. Then you take that 35, then we say between 40 and 60% of them are then withdrawn by who? By the South African Police Services or the NPA. And there's only 8.6% of cases pursued sees a successful conviction. And I mean, these are scary things. And then on top of it, it's shocking. Then we say on top of it, we have limited resources, which then impacts our ability to offer services and resources to survivors. Now, for me, at a forum like this, and this is what it will be good for us to say, is to agree what are the 5 or 10 specific things we need to do when it comes to gender-based violence and civil society in the workplace. I mean, there's the empowerment, there's the healthcare, there's the education side. Those areas, what needs to be done, specific things, and we then have to say, because I know as the International Women's Forum of South Africa, who, by the way, 19 years ago was brought to South Africa by Ma'am Mbeki and supported by other businesswomen, where the voice of women leaders across cultures, across sectors and industries can be heard and become the advocacy group for women. And they're part of a whole international organization, but if we can identify 5 to 10 issues, specific things that we think we need to fight for so that we can achieve it and set a target 2 to 3 years that we want to achieve, we will be part of that group advocating for that change.
Thank you so much. And you've moved us to the next part of the discussion which we'll have. I think let's just settle the problem statement, because it's quite important that we also later involve the audience and then we begin to be practical about how we move forward. But Tsitsi, before we even go to the next steps, I mean, we are what we teach. You representing the education sector, and I'm talking both formal and informal education. We are the sum total of our education system. Are we not saying one thing today, lamenting gender-based violence, but then going back, and dehumanization of women, but going back in our homes, going back in our schools, going back in our corporates, and in other sectors of society, saying something completely different, because the place of a woman is in the kitchen, and women need to know their place. Women who are outright and have a voice are not seen as assertive, but rather as aggressive. So what are we teaching ourselves? Are we not contradicting ourselves actually in what we teach formally and informally, and what we then expect as outcomes?
Absolutely. Education is at the center of empowerment. All of us are here, we are able to communicate, talk, because somebody provided us a platform to learn, to be able to get an education, so we're empowered to communicate, to express our views. We use education to write, we use education to express our opinions. And yet when you look at the current state, do you know that 30% of the children in South Africa are stunted? 30%. A stunted child is one who does not have enough food to eat. As a result, they don't learn anything. If a child, the first 1,000 days when a child is born are the most important. So if you starve them of good nutrition, it doesn't matter how many campaigns you have, it doesn't matter, whatever, how good the education system is, they're not going to learn anything. And guess where all these children are? In the rural areas. So we're talking about education, women empowerment. 60 to 70% of the women live in the rural areas. Those women, 30% of their children are stunted. They cannot absorb, they cannot concentrate in class. They are not able to intellectually process information. They also are not able to develop psychosocial skills. So they look unmotivated when it comes to learning. They cannot concentrate, they cannot focus. By the time they get to be, we know we were children before we became girls, right? We were girls before we became women, before we became mothers. So if the damage has been done at the bottom, what more? It's a small percentage of women that are going to enjoy the things we are talking about here. The majority are destined to pain, poverty, abject poverty, and the highest form of disenfranchisement and disempowerment and dehumanization. So what do we have to do? We have to change our school syllabus. Number one, we have to have the kind of leadership that fights for the right of their child, to ensure that the child is eating so that they can learn, so that they are able to participate fully in an education system that gives them the opportunity to become a Tsitsi, a Judy, an Irene. If we don't do that, guess what? We'll be fighting for us, the top tier, and forgetting where the majority of the people are. The people in the rural areas who don't have the opportunities that we have. Education is absolutely at the core. What kind of education? 8 out of 10 children in South Africa are not learning anything. They attend class, but there's no learning taking place. So if the right leadership, here I'm not talking political leadership, I'm talking about what is our passion? What is it that keeps me awake? What is it that makes me do what our heroes, the O.R. Tambos, the Mandelas, Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela, what is it that kept them awake, that caused them to sacrifice everything that they had in order for us to have an opportunity where we can talk black empowerment, where we can talk boards, where we can talk education, where we can talk all the things that some of us are enjoying? That sacrificial type of leadership that says, I will do anything to ensure that the syllabuses change, that the content that our children learn empowers them, so that by the time they develop from being children to being young girls to being women, they understand what power, what authority their decision-making is. You can't learn once you're, post-18. So the investment in that education requires, we need a big leadership, investment, passionate, sacrificial leadership, financial investment, and then the content of what the children learn to really shift the needle.
Thank you. I think we've now established that we do have a problem. And we can say that our education system obviously is not supportive of a culture that can rehumanize women in particular, but can eliminate gender violence. We've also established that our economy is a breeding ground for violence for various reasons, including the fact that women who sometimes stay in this kind of environment stay for economic reasons. So there's another flip side that we have not explored. And obviously on the social side, the social drum is beating for women to remain dehumanized. And clearly, yes, we've got the great constitution, great laws, but you're suggesting they don't work for us. I think let's just pause on the lamentation and ask ourselves one question. And I'll ask the panelists to just in 1 minute, because we need to involve the rest of the group in the conversation. In just 1 minute, how do we get out of this? What is the next step from where you are sitting? And just one solution, I think, that can take us there. Starting with you, Tsitsi.
I would just say, can I come in?
Oh, sorry, I was excluding you because maybe let's start with you.
I'd love to come in. Sorry, Tsitsi. Just 5 things that I would like us to look at. When it comes to gender-based violence, young people are saying, make a public list of the perpetrators. We talk about Uyinene. Everyone remembers the name, but no one even knows the name of the perpetrator. So they get away with it. So I think the biggest deterrent is knowing that your name is all over the place, saying that you are a perpetrator. The schools get to know, everyone gets to know. That's the first thing. The other thing that I believe each one of us in the different countries in Africa have to identify the cultural norms that dehumanize us. I'll give you an example. In KwaZulu-Natal, where I come from, it's a small, well, it's not a small province, but it's one of the 9 provinces in this country. There is a ritual in some of the rural areas where girls are tested for virginity. Now, I say women have to challenge that. And why do I say that? Anything that dehumanizes a girl, your dignity is challenged. You are tested by people that are actually not even professional. But more importantly, girls don't lose virginity on their own. They are actually violated by boys. So if you can't test the boy for virginity, then don't test the girl, because you're punishing the girl. There are many other cultural norms, you know the ones where you come from. Collectively, you need to sit down and say, what do we want to get rid of? Because culture evolves, and it doesn't do it on its own. It requires leaders like ourselves. We have something in this country, going back to what Sisi was saying in terms of education. There's something they call life orientation, where it's really about life. You're being socialized. one of the things that has to be part of the curriculum is gender-based violence. You would be surprised how many people see it as normal, what we call gender-based violence. The education of teachers and the education of learners, and every learner should know what it is. Our history, if we are to rehumanize ourselves, Tlale, we need to know that history. We need to know the heroes before our time. We read about Jan van Riebeeck. The world didn't start in 1652. It happened before, and we have leaders that we look up to. But if we don't know about them, we won't see ourselves in those leaders. Positive stories, not just leaders. Talk about positive things. Don't have this saying that, it's a black thing, it's black time. Change the narrative. There is no black thing. So what we say as parents, as leaders, is very important. I've raised this education around humanities, and I will raise it again. But the other thing that is critical is media. I think one of us raised that. During the dark days of apartheid, we used art to make noise, to actually talk about what we are encountering. When we had AIDS and HIV in this country, and we didn't know how to deal with it, government poured a lot of money into media, into art. Some of the messages were not great, but it was a try. We need to do exactly the same. Put money in documentaries that rehumanize us, that tell our positive stories. Use media to say what's positive about us. So for me, that's just a start of the things that we can do to change the narrative. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I think you've now almost quantum leaped us to the healing conversation. I think as a South African nation, we need to admit we jumped a lot of steps. There is no way of erasing apartheid, and therefore we need to perhaps look in the mirror and go back and kind of cleanse ourselves and admit that we are in pain. Because I think because of the euphoria of democracy, we kind of quantum leaped ourselves into peace, but you cannot have peace if you still have landmines around you. And therefore, going back to you, Tsitsi, what do we do next? I think that's in 1 minute so that we can obviously open it up to the rest of the group.
The one thing I would do, we need to find one very strong, effective voice, a good leader who represents the voice of women, whether that woman is a girl, whatever age. We put our money, we put our strength, we put our passion, because it's at the center is leadership. I was in a meeting at the very early stages of Malala. I'm giving it as an example. There are many awesome leaders. I was just one of the people who were asked, how do we build Malala to be a voice for young girls? Before she was known, and guess what? It was a lot of strategic thinking, expertise, focus groups. By the time we see Malala now, there was a lot of work that went into identifying the one voice that speaks for young girls who are out of school. They've done the same for Greta. Greta didn't just wake up, Greta, the voice of climate change. She just didn't wake up and start being passionate about climate. It was strategic, focused investment in resources. There is a whole power base backing her to be able to stand and say what she says.
Thank you. So it's about investing in ourselves. Irene, what is that one thing that you think will take us there?
Certainly for us, as International Women Forum of South Africa, we are advocating ourselves to be a voice. And I mean, we are women leaders. I'm not going to be ashamed that we are women leaders. So I'm not going to be ashamed. We come from there and we became leaders. We need to fight and ensure women takes their rightful place. So through the forum of the IWF South Africa, we will become the voice of women leaders who bring change in our country. So When there was a whole outcry, I think, when there was a march to the stock exchange, there were certain demands by a group of women of civil society. And what we will do, we are going to take 2 of the issues that were raised there, and we are going to ensure that that gets done in the next 2 years through the listed entities. One of the issues were that the percentage of the of revenue or profits of companies needs to go into a gender-based violence fund. So that's one thing we think. So we will take up things that we know we will be able to achieve and ensure that within the next 2 years that is achieved. And that's what we will do as IWFSA.
I think we need to commend them for that. So we stand behind you and wish you well in getting us at least the resources we need to be able to
and
deal
you will
with this
join
stage.
us, all the women leaders.
Thank you. Tlale, I mean, before you even move us there, religion and our culture, Dr. Judy has already touched us there. What are the things that we need to, can I say, stop doing, start doing, so that we can get us there? Because those are the 2 societal drivers that are feeding gender-based violence and the dehumanization of women.
I think many of these practices must be challenged. And we know when you talk about religion, you are challenging an institution that is powerful, that is male-dominated, but it needs to be engaged thoughtfully. So I think as women, we need to be like a thorn in the flesh and continue to say we need representation of women, etc. But I think when it comes to the solutions, for me, the one solution that I would like to suggest is that we need, as a society, to have a courageous conversation. And this courageous conversation must not just be located in higher institutions, it must be located in communities. This courageous conversation will talk about why are we a society that is hurting, because we know that hurt people hurt people. Our young people, our mothers, our fathers are bleeding, and that's why we are all bleeding as a society. So we need to locate all forms of intervention in community-based organization. My question is, how do we take the work that Human Rights Commission is doing, Commission for Gender Equality is doing, the Department of Women in the Presidency, how do we bring all their strategies and locate them in communities and help people? Universities are an amazing space where you can train young people and send them to different communities and let them work with young women and let them work with community members and open a conversation. Because for us to shift our minds and the views and the negative views that we have about women, there is no law that will shift that, but a conversation will shift that. So I think for me, the strategy that I want to suggest is that we take this conversation in communities. And for those of you who are interested, I've written a model on how we can do that. I just need funding.
Irene, I hope you caught that. Ne? She just said it. So we will have to catch up with the funding part. But I think on the human rights front, lastly, more laws, less laws, what will it take for us to get out of there?
So I think the comment made earlier about the fact that we actually need to understand our laws is more of a challenge. We don't need more laws. You know, the presidency now has provided these interventions, but these interventions are not new. So I think something that we need to be very more proactive about is to be better citizen monitors of our government. I think active citizenship is very important. I think it's important that we understand roles and responsibilities of each state department and what they are supposed to be achieving. I think it's also important that we understand how to do mainstream gender budgeting. Early parliamentarians with our first democracy, 94, our first democratic parliament, had specific gender-based budget initiatives that they closely monitored to ensure that gender-based violence was addressed, which is why we are celebrated throughout the world for our Tutuzela care centers, for example. It is because we had feminist parliamentarians in 1994 who made gender-based violence a priority. So I think it's also our responsibility to ensure that when we elect MPs, even if we have 50% of women in parliament, what are they actually doing to advance the rights of women, and how do we ensure that we hold them accountable to their duty? Thank you.
Thank you so much to the panel. I think let's open it up to the audience. You've heard our panel, and I think this is an opportunity for you to agree, disagree with them. But while we're doing that, may we recommend, particularly even our colleagues who come from other African countries who may have solutions to help us out with what has worked in your own context, but to the South African colleagues, and I'm sure you want to add or maybe take away from some of the comments that were made by the panel. I'm not sure whether we have a roving mic, so may I please maybe ask for the lights, because we need to see everybody in the audience. You've got the roving mic? Yes. So may we please start with colleagues here on the second row. Madam, thank you. May you please introduce yourself as you make your comment. Thank you.
My name is, should I face this or this one?
Either way.
Yeah, my name is Mariam Mathmani Makoko from Tanzania. I'm old mama. I'm 71 years old. But this year, December 31st, I'll be 72. You are welcome to Tanzania to celebrate with me my birthday. But I would like to speak my international language, which is Swahili. Will you allow me, please?
Do we have a Swahili interpretation?
Number six.
We need Tabi. We need the.
Yes. Sorry, sorry, Mama. Just
okay.
You were just trying to organize so we can hear.
Okay, let me stand.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. In the interest of time, because Mama Judy is kitted, do you want, maybe Mama Judy will repeat the question for us until they sort me out?
It's not coming on.
Number 6. Number 6, I think it's Swahili.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed, ma'am.
Ya, kama nilivyosema kwamba ningependa kuongea lugha yangu ya taifa. Nina mambo mengi sana ya kuongelea kuhusu mada zilizoongelewa, lakini kutokana na muda nafikiri nichukue kitu kimoja kimoja ambapo naweza nikavielezea bila kupoteza muda. Kwanza kabisa nilikuwa naomba niulize swali. Mimi nafanya kama mwalimu lakini si mwalimu. Nataka niulize kabla tujaendelea, nani ni Muislamu hapa ndani? Ambaye ni Muislamu? Waislamu wako ngapi ndani? Muslims, how many? We are only 3. Aha, okay. Yeah, good. And Christian? Yeah. Dini, hatujali dini kwenye utu. Kitu cha kwanza, hatuchanganyi dini kwenye utu. Binadamu wote ni sawa. Kwa hiyo ninachotaka kusema mimi, mwanamke ana uhuru, ana nafasi. Hata kwenye dini inaruhusu kufanya biashara, kufanya kazi. Naweza kutoa mfano mdogo tu katika sisi Waislamu. Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam alikuwa ni mwanamume, lakini mke wake Bibi Khadija ndio alimwajiri yeye kumfanyia biashara. Umeelewa? Do you get anything? You're not getting?
May I please just interrupt you once again, ma'am? I think we are experiencing technical challenge with the interpreter. If they can please assist us. we got to the part where she was talking about religion.
Yeah. Now
and we lost it from there.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that Mtume Muhammad was a man. His wife, Mama Khadija, she's a woman. But Mtume Muhammad was employed by Mama Khadija. It means that in Kiswahili also, or in English, they don't hear? I have to speak Kiswahili. Yeah, okay. Kwa hiyo Mtume Muhammad aliajiriwa. Ina maana kwamba wanawake tulianza biashara tangu karne ya zamani. Siku nyingi tulianza biashara, sio kwamba ni wanaume tu, lakini kwa sababu wenyewe tulikuwa bado hatujajikubali kwamba tunaweza. Mwanamke hawezi kufanya biashara kwa sababu ni mtu wa kuolewa, mtu wa kuzaa, kulea watoto nyumbani, kupika chakula basi. Lakini generation inavyoendelea ni kwamba tumepata ufahamu kwamba wanawake tunaweza kufanya kitu chochote anachofanya mwanamume. Swali jingine, kama ningekuwa na uwezo, ningetaka mwanamume abebe mimba miezi 9 halafu aende leba akazae kama anavyozaa mimi. Pale nafikiri mwanamume ndio angekuwa na heshima ya kushindwa kumpiga mwanamke, kwa sababu angepata uchungu na angepata tabu ya kubeba mimba, akajua kwamba mtoto ni kitu gani, siwezi kumpiga wala kumdhalilisha. Nafikiri ni kwamba haiwezekani. Mungu alishatuwekea sisi uchungu na kuzaa. Lakini ile ingemfanya mwanamume aogope kumpiga mwanamke. Miezi 9 mimba angekuwa anaogopa, maana tumezaa kwa uchungu, tumebeba mimba kwa muda mrefu na matatizo mengi yamekutukuta kipindi hicho. Lakini kwa elimu tunasema sisi mtoto umleavyo ndivyo akuavyo. Ndani ya familia wewe uko unatukana mtoto wako, wewe mbwa, wewe punda, it means you are mama mbwa and you are mama punda, kwa sababu yule mtoto umemzaa wewe mwenyewe. Sasa vile vitu vinaendelea na mtoto akitoka pale umempa maadili gani, kwamba akitoka akaenda kucheza na wenzie ni wa matusi. Halafu mila na desturi za zamani, tuna nzuri na tuna mbaya. Zile nzuri tunatakiwa tuzichukue, maana zamani tulikuwa na mila zetu nzuri sana. Lakini mila zile nzuri tunaziacha, tunachukua mila za kisasa za utandawazi, tunaigiza wenzetu ambao wametuletea mila zinapotosha na Uafrika wetu, na mila zetu zina desturi zetu za Kiafrika. Kwa kweli naomba niwape tu watu wengine muda. Mimi ni mama mwenye watoto 7 na ni single parent. Nimewalea nikiwa peke yangu mpaka wamemaliza shule na wanafanya kazi, na sasa hivi wananisaidia mimi mpaka nimefika hapa. Pia wamenisaidia pocket money, mama ukienda kule kafanye shopping. Kwa hiyo mama tunaweza. Watoto 7 kulelewa na mama peke yake, baba yuko wapi? Na alikuwa yupo. Kwa hiyo tusirudi nyuma. Kina mama tukazane, tujipe nguvu, tuseme kwamba tunaweza, na tuzidi kuendelea kuhamasisha kina mama wengine ambao wako chini wafikie kama huku tulikofikia sisi. Asante.
Thank you so much for that contribution, reiterating once again the role that culture plays and the fact that we need to relook at what is bad with our culture, discard, because culture is context specific, and take up the practices that are serving us. But again, thank you for the contribution around women needing to hold hands in getting us there. The second comment, yes, ma'am.
Asante. Mimi naongea Kiswahili, ni Mtanzania. Kwa majina naitwa Tatu Maleta, natokea Tanzania, mkoa wa Morogoro. Pia ni mwanamke jasiri pia na shujaa niliyetoka kupanda mlima wa Kilimanjaro 2016. Kama mlisikia, wanawake wa Tanzania tulienda kupanda mlima wa Kilimanjaro, mmoja wapo ni mimi, ambaye tulipeleka madai yetu kwa ajili ya kumiliki ardhi na kupata hati miliki za kimila au za serikali, kwa sababu lengo lilikuwa wanawake wengi hatumiliki ardhi, na tukiangalia wanawake ndio wazalishaji wakuu. Bila ardhi huwezi kumiliki ardhi na kuzalisha chakula cha kutosha. Kwa hiyo nashukuru shirika la TGNP mtandao ndio lilionipeleka huko na kwenda kupanda mlima, na tulipeleka madai yetu, tuliasimika kule. Na lingine zaidi, napenda kushukuru huyu mama aliyeandaa hii kongamano, kutushirikisha wanawake zaidi ya 1000 kukutana hapa. Pia ameshirikisha vijana na watu wenye ulemavu, kwa sababu makongamano mengi yanawaacha nyuma hawa vijana. Lakini sasa hivi tunataka wajifunze kupitia sisi mama zao, changamoto tulizokutana nazo, na wao waweze kupata nyayo za kutufata sisi wazazi wao. Mada kubwa zilizoongeleka hapa, nikiangalia hata ile picha iliyoonyeshwa hapa iliniuma sana kama mimi mwanamke. Kweli nilifikiri Tanzania tu ndio tunaonyanyasika, kumbe hata nchi zingine wanawake wanateseka. Kwa mfano mdogo tu, mimi mwaka 2014 nilipata mafunzo ya UN kupitia nafasi ya uongozi. 2015 nilichukua fomu ya udiwani wa kata. Wanaume walikuwa 8, mwanamke nilikuwa peke yangu, kwa maana ya kugombea nafasi ya udiwani wa kata, ili niweze kuingia kwenye ngazi za maamuzi, kutokana na changamoto tunazokutana nazo pale kijijini, jinsi tunavyonyanyasika kama wanawake. Nilichokuja kushangaa, mila na mifumo kandamizi ambayo inayotunyanyasa na zilizoshamili kule kwetu. Mimi nilizalauliwa sana kwenye kipindi cha kampeni. Kwanza nilikuwa sina rasilimali fedha. Baada ya kupata mafunzo tu ya UN nilichukua fomu na nilitamani niwe kiongozi kama mwanamke, niweze kusaidia wanawake wenzangu, vijana na watu wenye ulemavu. Lakini kipindi tunasimama kwenye kampeni, kuchukua fomu peke yake gharama ilikuwa 100,000. Siku tunarudisha fomu wanatuambia tuongeze tena 50,000. Kwa hiyo 150,000. Mwanamke kama mwanamke wa kijijini, mimi ni mkulima mjasiriamali mdogo kutoka kule chini kabisa Morogoro vijijini. Nilipambana, nikachukua akiba yangu yote ya ufuta, nikaenda kulipa lile deni, nikachukua ile fomu. Nikasema mimi nitapambana. Mwisho wa siku tunasimama kwenye kampeni, wanaume wanasimama na kusema hatuwezi kuongozwa na mwanamke. Mwanamke hawezi kutuongoza. Kwanza hana hela, pili hana usafiri, pili yeye kama mwanamke atatusaidiaje? Nikija kuchukulia na dini yetu ya Kiislamu, mifumo kandamizi inaanzia kwenye dini, yani mwanamke anadharaulika tangu kwenye dini. Leo iliniuma sana. Mwisho wa siku wanaume walipata nafasi za uongozi, mimi kama mwanamke nilishindwa. Lakini sikukata tamaa. 2016 nilipopata fursa ya kwenda kupanda mlima wa Kilimanjaro kupitia TGNP, nikamwaga mume wangu na watoto. Nikasema jamani, nimepata fursa kama mwanamke wa Tanzania kupeleka madai yetu huko Kilimanjaro, mimi naenda kupambana. Kweli nilifunga kibwebwe na nilifunga mkanda, niliacha watoto wangu, nilienda kupanda mlima wa Kilimanjaro mpaka kileleni ili nione je, nitaweza au siwezi. Asante.
Asante, thank you. Thank you so much. I think there's one thing we just need to note. We all are concurring with her in honoring our mother, Mam Beki, for having brought us here today. We honor you, Mama, for the contribution, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. May I ask that, because we've got a long list and we don't have a lot of time, may I please really ask that we do a question or a comment, but please be brief so that we can give credibility to the voices of everybody in the room. May I please request that? Thank you.
I am Francisca Mapito Matsoha from Lesotho. I'll speak in English. Actually, I have a question for the third presenter from you, ma'am. So, message she made a mention that she has developed a model. I'm just interested in knowing whether that model is in isolation with models that have been developed in the past. Did you look into those models, whether maybe you have to carry them forward or there's something that you have to lose, because they are very good models of the past. Thank you very much. That is my only question.
Thank you. We'll answer it when we do the wrap-up, May. Thank you.
Bon après-midi à tous. Je m'appelle Martine et je vais m'exprimer en français. Je viens du Burundi. Et ma question s'adresse à toutes les personnes du panel. C'est que la situation que vous nous avez dressée, je me dis qu'elle concerne beaucoup plus l'Afrique du Sud, alors que dans mon pays, il y a un autre tableau qui se dessine. Je vais essayer d'être brève pour dire ou peut-être avoir des pistes de solutions. C'est qu'au Burundi, le Burundi a d'abord une culture silencieuse autour des questions de la violence faite aux femmes. C'est une société qui vénère le mariage, donc ce qui veut dire que pour une femme qui est violentée, pour une femme qui subit des violences dans son ménage, quitter son époux ou prendre ce courage à deux mains est vu comme un échec. Ce qui veut dire que plusieurs femmes peuvent rester dans un ménage, peuvent être violentées durant des ans, une dizaine d'années, une quinzaine d'années, parce que la femme a peur qu'on la juge, qu'on l'étiquette d'une personne qui n'a pas pu garder la bonne image de la famille. Aussi, nous sommes confrontés à un problème de finances. Nous sommes un pays pauvre. Du coup, certaines femmes peuvent rester dans leur ménage parce qu'elles ne vont pas subvenir à leurs besoins dès elles seront parties ou dès qu'elles vont traduire leur époux en justice. Donc, ce sont ces grands problèmes auxquels nous sommes confrontés. Une société silencieuse qui n'ose pas dénoncer les violences faites aux femmes. Les femmes elles-mêmes n'arrivent pas à dire voilà ce qui m'arrive dans ma vie, voilà ce que j'affronte. L'exemple est celle d'une amie qui a essayé d'aider sa cousine en lui cherchant un entretien dans une organisation qui promeut la protection du genre. Et la dame en question n'est pas venue et ne s'est pas présentée. Pour dire que voilà les problèmes auxquels nous faisons face. Nous sommes une société silencieuse qui n'arrive pas à dénoncer. Et la situation financière fait que les femmes restent dans leur ménage au risque de perdre leur vie. Merci.
Merci, Madame Za.
Bonjour à tous.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Heureusement que vous avez regardé la montre. Je m'appelle Angelani. Je suis de la délégation burundaise. Mais je vais vous dire quelque chose. Je remercie la délégation burundaise de m'avoir invitée parce que je suis normalement une réfugiée congolaise de la RDC vivant au Burundi. Quand nous avions parlé tout à l'heure de la déshumanisation de la femme, comprenez que la femme réfugiée est doublement déshumanisée. Elle est derrière encore la femme propre. Vous comprenez comment elle vit. Donc elle vit difficilement plus que la femme elle-même. En fait, ce que je voulais encore partager ce soir, c'était à propos du mot que vous avez donné, déshumaniser. Au fait, la femme s'est déshumanisée elle-même. Ça, ce sont mes propos à moi. Quand nous nous marions, par exemple, et nous n'arrivons pas à concevoir, ce sont les femmes, nos sœurs, qui viennent nous injurier dans la maison. Comment voulez-vous que mon mari ou bien que le frère de mon mari me respecte pendant que ses sœurs, que mes sœurs me déshumanisent? Ce que je voulais encore ajouter, de nous toutes qui sommes ici, combien iront dire à leurs enfants, il ne faut pas violer la femme, surtout à nos petits garçons de 3 ans, de 5 ans. Si nous ne les commençons pas maintenant, quand ils seront adultes, ben la femme, voilà quoi. Mais si nous commençons aujourd'hui à dire à ces petits garçons de 3 ans qu'il faut respecter la femme, cette femme que tu vois dans la rue, elle me représente. Cette femme que tu vois dans la rue, elle représente ta sœur. Je pense que dans les années à venir, on parlera moins de violence. On a tellement appris, j'ai tellement de choses à dire, mais je veux être vraiment bref. Je vais sauter à la 3e. Excusez-moi.
May I just ask in the interest of time, please?
Yes. On a parlé tout à l'heure qu'on appelle du journalisme ou bien médiatisé à propos de la femme. Je pense qu'aujourd'hui, les femmes chrétiennes sont pasteurs, sont évangélistes. Elles parlent de Joseph, elles parlent de David, elles oublient de parler de Sarah, elles oublient de parler de Dalila, bien qu'elle a trompé Samson pour sauver son pays. Et voilà, j'encourage les femmes de donner une autre image de la femme et de parler surtout à nos garçons de qu'est-ce qui se passe au lieu de nous enfermer et de ne rien dire. Parce que je suis sûre, en rentrant d'ici, tout le monde va oublier, tout le monde va jeter son cahier, personne n'en parlera aux garçons. Voilà, merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Hello, my name is Sukaina, and I am from the Moroccan delegation. Thank you very much for the panelists. I learned a lot today, and I think one of the questions in this session that was raised by one of the panelists, and that is in tune with the theme of the conference, which is Women Voice and Power, is colonization and patriarchy, both systems as silencing mechanisms that women have been dealing with. And all of this time I was listening to all of your stories and experiences, and also all the questions here, personal trajectories and everything. I always was thinking about the question of history and its role in creating a new African subjectivity that is neither engaged in nostalgic tendencies nor in pessimistic futurism or optimistic one, unrealistic one. So I think what I would like to suggest is also to abort the question of history and how we as African women can autonomously rewrite and reinvent and also incorporate this history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, yo voy a hablar en español. Sí, yo me llamo Gema Mangue, vengo de Guinea Ecuatorial. Vale, como el tiempo es escueto, no voy a alargar, iré directamente a mi pregunta. En esta tarde, como las señoras han hablado, simplemente como joven, yo quiero saber, en la sociedad, tú trabajando, siendo secretaria de alguien, sufres un acoso y quieres acusar el acoso, o bien vas en el Ministerio de Educación o cualquier ministerio que sea para acusar el acoso, encuentras que es la misma persona que es el director o el ministro de ese ministerio. Entonces, bien, como joven, lo que haces es dimitir, dejar el trabajo porque simplemente esa persona o tu jefe o quien sea te está acosando. Ahora quiero saber, en esta sociedad, porque de una manera u otra parte te está bloqueando en no ser lo que tenías que ser en la sociedad. Ahora bien, pregunto, quiero que me respondan, por favor, ¿qué puedo hacer para que esta violencia yo la pueda acusar y quedarme libre y poder hacer realmente lo que yo quiero ser en la sociedad? Gracias.
Thank you.
Boa tarde, sou Ana Pereira, da delegação de Angola. Vou começar por dizer que, antes de fazer a minha pergunta, que mulheres educadas, sociedade sã. Nós aprendemos mais vendo do que ouvindo, não é? É aquela parábola que sempre dizem, faça o que eu digo e não o que eu faço. Então temos que fazer sempre ao contrário. A nossa educação como mulheres africanas, e digo muito mais no meu país, não é? Deve ser mudada e evoluída. Por quê? Porque nós temos a percepção, ou seja, nós somos educadas para ser inimigas da própria mulher. Ou seja, nós temos uma educação que nos leva a olhar mal a própria mulher. A outra, quando tem, por exemplo, quando sobe em um cargo, em vez de nós apoiarmos, nós sempre dizemos que ela subiu aí porque conseguiu ou deitou-se com um outro homem. Ou um homem é que lhe pôs nesse posto porque ela é sua amante ou algo parecido. Então, eu queria dizer, em torno da educação, e sabendo que uma mulher educa uma sociedade, ou seja, uma mulher educada educa uma sociedade, então eu gostaria de saber do painel completo, ou se alguém não é do painel, poderia me responder então, o que devemos fazer para mudarmos essa percepção, essa educação que nós temos ou que nós recebemos, que nos faz ser, às vezes, inimigas das outras mulheres. Obrigada.
Good afternoon, sister. I am Diana Draper Allen. I'm from Liberia. As you are aware, we had 14 years of carnage where women were dehumanized, babies were raped, children were raped before their parents. But today, we have benefited from a law that was passed by our former president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. If you are caught in rape, you are jailed and it's non-bailable. So nowadays, people are coming out and stepping out when you are raped. If you are found, you are put in jail for over 20 years and nobody will come to bail you out. So this is some of the things that like other countries need to take, because it's a taboo. People don't want to talk about rape. People try to hide it. It was like that before, but Mr. Selly said, no, if you are violated, you come out, speak out. And now people are put behind bars. So let's speak out as African women. Let's protect our sisters and our children from being raped. I want to thank Madam Becky for this forum where we can come and our voices are heard. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Sarah Conley from Liberia. I want to thank Madam Becky for this unique program. Like I was telling some of the members that built up this program, thank you. Because for years, for times, some of us have not been part of this unique program. So I will always tell thank you. Even when I'm going back home, I will tell thank you for this unique program. You know, I have something on mind that the ritual practices. Ritual. I'm complaining Liberia because I am from Liberia. Part of Liberia, which is the rural area, you found out that at the time when we are about to make our farms, at this time you will be hearing, oh, the person was dead, they took parts from the person, and they have an animal by the name of a baboon. I don't know if people know a baboon. And this baboon, the person will use this baboon form, dressed like a baboon, get into the farm, and run after the women, only to kill the children or to have something to do with the children or the mothers. A baboon. And when you try to grab that baboon, only to find out there's a male in that baboon. It's very, very bad off. Amen. Yeah. And we who that are working, I am a township commissioner for one of the districts. Before you get to your job spot or your place of work, the person there is in love with you. And you are telling them, no, I think I know my right. I think I need to do my best. But yet then still the person will say, if you will not do it, when we go into meeting hall, you will not speak. You will not talk. And because we are in a rural area, we are afraid because of tradition. On our side, when men talk, you have to remain mute. So, though we have penitence for all these things, we have been saying it over and over. But I want to appeal to this unique body. Please let us pass this thing into law and give it to our president. Let there be a force that we are tired. Baboon is a baboon, not baboon human being. No. When I learn my job, give me my chance and let me do my job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We don't have a lot of time. May I just please appeal again to the contributions for us to just, oh, so yeah, Mama will come to you and then we'll go through the, if you can just really be brief.
I will try.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I join the ladies here who are thanking Mrs. Mbeki because without her, we are not here. And she has come a long way with this idea. I think I'm correct in saying in 1981, the greatest leader we ever had as South Africans, Oliver Reginald Tambo, at a women's conference, said some very meaningful and powerful words that I would like to remind ourselves of, because it really is a good framework. I wish it were, if it were possible to have the paper or the speech that he gave to a women's conference in Angola in 1981, it would be helpful. He said, "It is the duty of women to educate us men against our own archaic and antique views on women." I see its women's voice and power as agents of change is the theme of this conference. But he said it in 1981 already. That is the duty, the responsibility of women to take the lead in doing this job. Furthermore, he said, women should stop thinking that their role, he was talking about the ANC at the time, in the movement, was just to be performing certain categories of responsibilities. He said, we are here as comrades in arms, equal and no one inferior. Thirdly, he said, is it the third or fourth? He said, the problem we have is that we men have these traditionalist, conservative, and primitive views about ourselves and the women as well. And that imposes certain responsibilities unduly on women. But at the same time, the other side of the coin is that the women adopt these conservative, traditionalist, primitive views on themselves, and they become submissive and follow the line. I think this is what we've been talking about. I just thought maybe if we say, we put that as a context in which the whole discussion should be going. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam.
السلام عليكم. أنا رجاء من السودان. أنا فخورة جدا بوجودي في هذا المؤتمر وأوجه كل الشكر إلى اللجنة المنظمة لهذا المؤتمر والسيدة زامبيلا إمبيكي. قبل أن أبدأ أود أن أوجه رسالة إليكن بأن المرأة هي كيان لا يتجزأ من الكيان الكلي للمجتمع. يقولون أن المرأة نصف المجتمع، ولكن أنا أقول بأن المرأة هي المجتمع بأكمله. نحن في السودان بنعاني بعض المجتمع بتاعنا، يعني ما كله بيعانوا من قهر النساء بالذات، من القهر النفسي والقهر الجسدي، وأيضا مشكلة التعليم في المناطق الريفية. بيعتبروا إنه المرأة لا تستحق بأن تتعلم، وأن المرأة القوية يمكن أن لا تتزوج ويمكن أن لا ينظر لها، لأن المرأة القوية باعتبار هي امرأة صعبة التفاهم، لا يمكن التفاهم معها بسهولة. أنا أمامكم أنا أستاذة في جامعة، لكن عائلتي من منطقة ريفية. السؤال الذي أوجهه إليكم: كيف يمكننا أن نحقق العدالة الاجتماعية وأن نخرج نسائنا في السودان من التخلف الاجتماعي ومن القهر النفسي ومن القهر الجسدي، وأن تصبح للمرأة صوت قوي، رغم أنه نحن الآن بعد إسقاط هذا النظام البائد أصبح للمرأة الحق في التمثيل النسوي في الحكومة بنسبة 40%، ولكن إلى الآن بعض المناطق الريفية الموجودة لدينا المرأة هي المستضعفة وليس لها الحق بأن ترفع صوتها. وشكرا لكم.
Thank you so much. We have 4 contributions. The line seems to be increasing. May I please just request that we really be brief so that we can take the conversation to fruition.
شكرا. الشكر لجنوب أفريقيا، الشكر للقائمين بهذا المؤتمر أو الدايلوج الحوار، السيدة أمبيكي الشكر لها، الشكر للمنظمين الجلسة والميسرة ومشاركتهم بخبراتهم وتبادل الأفكار. هتكلم عن 3 نقاط. يمكن هالة سليم من السودان وسبقتني إسراء ببعض النقاط. أنا هتكلم عن إنه المشكلة المرأة الأفريقية في نسبة أمية عالية، فالبداية بمحو أو انخفاض نسبة الأمية العالية بين النساء، فدي حاجة مهمة خالص عشان تقدر المرأة تكتسب الوعي والخبرات. الحاجة الثانية هي التمكين، مسألة تمكين المرأة وبناء قدراتها من خلال التدريبات واكتساب الثقة في نفسها. في من الجانب برضو من ناحية القوانين محتاجين لسن وتفعيل القوانين المساندة للمرأة، مثل قوانين FGM لمكافحة ختان الإناث برضو الحد من الزواج المبكر، دي كلها يمكن من العوامل اللي بتخلي المرأة تكبل من حركتها وإنها تكون عندها إسهاماتها المقدرة. كمجتمع زراعي يمكن في السودان ومعظم أفريقيا هي مجتمعات زراعية، بنلقى إنه النساء بيقوموا بالزراعة على مستويات الاكتفاء الذاتي. فإذا حصل إنه أخذت تطوير واكتسبت خبرات زراعية ومدوها بالمعدات، فبيحصل إنه حنلقى إنه الناتج حق المرأة ممكن يتحول من بدل إنه يكون لاكتفاء ذاتي يخش لنا في الناتج الإجمالي القومي، ومنها يكون في الدخل القومي، وبكون عندها مساهمة واضحة في الاقتصاد. شكرا.
Before you start, may I just ask for indulgence for the members of the group that we just extend with about 10 minutes so that we can give credibility to the voices. May I please ask for that indulgence so that at least everybody can have a chance? Are you comfortable? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Fatima Dige. I come from Cape Town. The violence in South Africa is a violence that has been perpetrated since the colonizers came to South Africa and colonized. And now we are getting the return of that violence. As much as we want to address the violence from our point of view as black people, we need to also address the violence from the point of view of the perpetrator, who is the white man. Number two, culture is man-made. Tradition comes from culture. It's also man-made. When cultures or traditions don't work, they are discarded. Why don't we, as African black women, do away with lobola? Because lobola is not serving the purpose that it was meant for originally, which was a gift to the parents of the young woman who is going to leave her family, do away with her surname, and go to the husband's family and adopt that man's name. Lobola has become a business, and we are to blame. Nowadays, if your daughter has a degree, you want 50, 60,000. You don't think about the future of this young couple who are going to start a new life with what? Let's think about that. As a single parent, what is the purpose of circumcision in the 21st century? Because that system also has been destroyed by us. It is a money-making tradition. Nowadays, your young man goes to circumcision school, and then when he comes back, you must go and buy him expensive clothes so that he can compete with the other boys. What is he learning in the bush? I, as a single mother, the guys who are in the circumcision committees in Langa come to me to ask me for money for this, money for that. And because I am a woman, I cannot step inside that space which is meant for men only. Whereas I am paying for the circumcision. Why can I not have a voice? Let's think about that.
Thank you.
And then, last but not least, let's just think about the prison system. Is the prison system serving us? Because prisons are overflowing. Sometimes we could take from the past. I'll just make an example. Say somebody infects your daughter with HIV, okay? Right. It's just an example. If that person really has infected somebody with HIV, why don't we say to that person, you have to be responsible for her health from now on? Just let's think about these things. Thank you.
Thank you. our two last contributions before we wrap up.
Hello, sisters. Dumela from Botswana. So my reflections while I was listening to the panelists speaking was that if 20% of businesses in this country if only 20% have a policy for sexual harassment, then there's something fundamentally off with us as human beings collectively. And what I'm also realizing is that our world as it is right now is a reflection of who we are collectively as a human race, right? So for us to truly transform and create a new world, a new ecosystem, we need to transform our consciousness. So we need a shift in consciousness because we create the world as we are. So if we're still wounded, if we're still operating from a space of scarcity, of inferiority, of smallness, we're going to continue creating the world as it is now. So we need to shift our consciousness, which is why I was very excited to come here and explore what it will take to heal the mind and the soul of an African, because we do need that healing. Personally, I do it at a personal space, and I'm exploring how we can do that at a wholesale level, because we need healing, really, if we are to shift that consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bonsoir. Je m'appelle Mbarushimana Africa. Je suis burundaise. Je remercie Madame Zanen Beki qui a pensé à ce forum. Le sujet que nous sommes en train de développer, penser en rapport avec le projet que je suis en train de mener depuis la fin de mes études universitaires. Je vais revenir sur la scolarisation. Vous avez dit que c'est le changement pour la solution qu'il faut un changement du programme de scolarisation. Mais je suis contre cette solution parce que tant que des agents de changement, on doit d'abord, pour trouver une solution, on doit d'abord commencer par les racines. Les racines, je vais dire l'origine de cette famine dans ces foyers, comme vous avez dit. Parmi ces sources, dans les pays africains comme au Burundi, il y a des naissances incontrôlées. Ces naissances incontrôlées, pourquoi j'ai dit ces naissances incontrôlées? Je me souviens quand j'étais dans les stages, j'ai fait les soins infirmiers. J'ai vu une maman vient à l'hôpital avec beaucoup, il avait 6 enfants, c'était dans le milieu rural, et la maman était battue par son homme. Quand on lui a demandé pourquoi il t'a battu, je ne sais pas, quand il y a une autre qui est venue et on lui a demandé pourquoi tu ne peux pas faire le planning familial. Elle a dit non, je ne peux pas faire le planning familial, mon mari va me tuer. Une autre, on lui a demandé pourquoi tu ne peux pas faire le planning familial. Tu n'as pas de travail, ton mari n'a pas de travail, et alors pourquoi la multiplication de ces naissances? Elle a dit non, je ne peux pas faire ça à cause de la religion. Je pense qu'on doit arrêter ces choses qu'on a mis dans la tête, la religion ou aussi la crainte de nos maris. Merci.
Thank you. Can I give you 1 minute each, please, to wrap up? Thank you.
Good evening to everybody. I'm Angel Anna Yeriman from Cameroon. The English part, I will speak in English. But I want to say thank you to Mama Zanele Mbeki for this great initiative. But I listened keenly to all of the panelists that were talking this afternoon. But my concern is it was diverted mostly to South Africa. I'm coming from Cameroon and from the Central African, that's the CEMAC, the zone. And I believe presently that is the region that is really troubled. And when we are talking about violence, me from Cameroon, we looked at South Africa as if they have laws that are advanced that protect women. But if it's diverted, it will not help us. That is the first point. The second point I want to say, as the they were talking about investing in women taking their space. That I want to contribute. We can empower women. Be it before war, after war, or during war, we can shape the way of empowering, because it's not every woman have the opportunity to go to school. It depends on the level, because I believe to solve the problem of violence, to solve the problem of women not having the right place, being the right, we should be empowered. If you are empowered, then we can have the right place and the right space to be heard.
مساء الخير. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم جميعا. أنا دكتورة حليمة الصادق من ليبيا. جئت عضو برلمان. جئت من بلد، هذا البلد يعاني من نزاعات وصراعات من 2011. وقبل كل شيء أنا سعدت جدا بهذا اللقاء التقابلي بالنساء الأفريقيات، وأرى فيهن كل القوة، وأتمنى أن يكون فيه تشبيك أو تواصل فيما بيننا لوضع رؤية ومتابعة هذه الرؤية حتى نصل إلى حل وإحلال السلام في ليبيا. كما أننا مجموعة النساء الذين جئنا من ليبيا عانينا الكثير لكي نصل إلى هنا، إلى جنوب أفريقيا تحديداً، لأن في ليبيا لا وجود لسفارات بحيث أن احنا نتحصلوا على تأشيرة. الحاجة الثانية، المطارات مقفلة، المنفذ البري الذي يربطنا بتونس أيضاً مقفل، فعانينا حتى وصلنا إلى جنوب أفريقيا، ولكن على أمل أن نرجع برؤية. هذه الرؤية والأمل في نساء أفريقيا اللاتي رأينا فيهن ولمسنا فيهن القوة والإرادة، وإيمانا منا أن السلام لا يأتي إلا من المرأة، ومعا سنبني السلام بإذن الله. ولكم جزيل الشكر. تحياتي.
Bonjour, je suis AfWID du Sénégal et je remercie les panélistes. Au Sénégal, Dieu merci, nous n'avons pas connu les conflits ni les agissements. Mais tout le monde pense que nous avons la paix et la sécurité. Mais souvent, les filles ou les femmes sont violées et parfois même tuées. Bien plusieurs des familles essayent de cacher ce drame pour éviter la publicité. Mais c'est dommage qu'il y a certaines femmes qui vivent leur calvaire en silence et en solo. Bien que nous avons une plateforme des femmes, une plateforme nationale des femmes. Concernant le plan économique, presque toutes les femmes sont dans les secteurs de développement et ils n'ont aucun problème quand même pour accéder à certains privilèges. Et la question du mariage aussi, dans notre pays, si une femme pense qu'elle ne peut plus continuer avec son mari, elle a le droit d'aller au tribunal et demander le divorce, et après le procès, on lui accorde le divorce sans problème. Et là, il n'a qu'à dire qu'il est de mort incompatible avec son mari. Et là, il n'y a aucun problème. Et là, en tant que femme de développement, je pense que nous devons continuer à sensibiliser nos filles et nos garçons sur le processus du développement de nos pays. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much for all your contribution. We're really humbled and honored, I think, to have them. But in summary, and we'll have closure, what we have heard, I think, from the contribution is really we are what we advocate for. We have to review our religious and cultural practices because they're dynamic, and therefore we need to move ourselves to a position where they assist us in the rehumanization of us as women. Secondly, what is very evident is that our justice system is not working for us, and therefore there is a need for us to review and optimize how we can get a system that works for us. And I think personally, I think it's been coming across from all comments, women are standing in their own way. I mean, it's a clear comment that we are self-suppressing, we are advocating for some of the things that today we've been advocating against. So perhaps there's a change in the languaging, change in the narrative that we need to begin to develop so that we can have a lexicon for our younger women and even our older women so that we can talk for ourselves instead of talking against ourselves. It was important, obviously, in this conversation that we try to have a few things that we can take forward. The first one that is very clear is education, in that we need to review our life orientation curriculum, where we begin to include critical aspects of gender-based violence, healing, but most importantly, the rewriting of our history, so that we don't gloss over the pain, we acknowledge it so that we can move forward. Another suggestion, obviously, and I'm putting it because I don't know whether it was advocating for a formal review of our cultural and religious practices that seem to be standing in our way of getting to a sustainable outcome. There was another action item, which is advocating, obviously, perhaps to government and to the stakeholders present here, that we perhaps need to shift the focus from the victims, but rather begin to publicize the perpetrators. By doing that, we believe that it will be a deterrent, but people will begin to see the face of violence. Because currently, it comes in the form of men in suits, it comes in the form of mother-in-laws who are women who go to church, and therefore, if we do not publish the perpetrators, we remain silent, as one of the colleagues was saying. And I think there was one, and I don't know how we couch it as a way forward, which is a program on women redefining themselves. And I think it's an action item for those who are in advocacy groups to say, what is the place that women should occupy, but what should it look like? Because it's important for us to admit that if you can't define it, you can't achieve it. And it's therefore important that we try to achieve it. And those was that some of the action items that we're taking forward. But I just want to ask the panelists one last sentence, please, in closing. How do we regain our humanity? One sentence, please. Starting with, okay. Delegating from this side, Tandy. Oh, we need the mic.
Thank you, Tabi. I think we need to remember that at the center of everything is our dignity. We've sacrificed a huge amount of life through revolution, through activism, through singing songs, that has spilt a lot of blood. And I think we need to be able to say, as women, we are not only entitled to dignity, dignity resides within us. And I think it's important that if we're going to start from the center of dignity, then it becomes incumbent on us to understand that all of the rights that are important to women need to be realized and need to be respected by all women. So something like sexual and reproductive health care rights, for example, it's not something to do with religion or morality. It has to do with your dignity as a human being. So for me, at least, the importance is that we center dignity at everything that we do. Thank you.
Okay, in one sentence, I also want to respond to one thing that touched me. I think there was a young lady who asked about violence. How does she respond to violence in the workplace when she asks for help? The very same people who must help her are the ones who are perpetrating. I think in this case, there is a need for the very affected to come together as a group and challenge the system. So activism is very important. When we talk about liberation in South Africa, yes, there were other nation states that supported us, but at the grassroots level, people who felt the pain, mobilized, came together in solidarity to fight for one cause. So I think young women must do that in the same place, to challenge the system by coming together and say, here are our issues. We are asked for sexual favors when we need opportunities that we are qualified for, okay? And also just to respond to, there was a question raised about the model that I talked about. This model is called Sabelo Yabizwa, which is respond to the call. And it's based on active citizenship. And it's nothing new. It's things that I was exposed to, having grown up in a township during the state of emergencies. When we needed to communicate a message, it was from house to house, and the message would spread the whole village or the whole community. So it's basically asking communities to come together and talk about issues that are affecting them and see how they can come together, whether it's through putting to parliament, to local municipality, any other issue. And the other one, the other leg of this Sabelo Yabizo program is the Never Again movement. And this Never Again movement came from the study that I did in a township called Everton, where young women were violated by men in the community. So, and it's based on also the He for She campaign, which is the UN initiative, to say that in talking about this gender-based violence, there's no way we can leave men behind. We need men to commit and challenge other men, to call them out and say we need to end this form of violence.
Thank you. If we can move to a last speaker, please.
I'm not going to say a lot.
One sentence, please.
One sentence.
Yeah.
We start with ourselves. I've started off by saying it's within ourselves. Women, we have a voice. You have a voice. If you don't let that be heard, no one is going to do anything. We are strong as an individual, but we are even stronger as a collective. And therefore, my view to women is we have to believe in ourselves and our confidence. It is our voice. Let your voice be heard. Your voice has to be heard, whether it is in the family, whether it is to other women, whether it is to the community. We cannot keep quiet. Our voice has to be heard. We will make sure the voice of women leaders are heard. But every other woman that have related their story, it's clear. When your voice is heard, something gets done. Something gets moved. If it's not heard, nothing is going to be done. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much. I think in closing, it is very clear that it all starts with ourselves, in our homes, in our corporates, in our societies, to change, and going back to the question, to regain our humanity. We cannot delegate that to anyone else. So may I advocate that as a contribution to this movement that has been started, or the conversation today, let us all as women commit to do something one woman at a time, so that collectively we can get to a solution. I'd like to thank the members of the panel for your time and for your contribution, and thank everybody in the room for your contribution. But I think I would be amiss if I didn't ask all of us, in honor of Mambeki, who is in our presence today, to stand up in her honor and give a round of applause for having gotten us here. Mama siyabonga kiri, we are black, singaishaya ngoba niyayaz. The South Africans know she can't just stand up. Igama lamakosikazi alibongwe, malibongwe, 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 igama lakamambeki. Malibongwe, igama lakaMamumbeki. Malibongwe, 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 malibongwe. Mama siyabonga, realeboga. Thank you.
Can we see you for a moment, Mama Mbeki? We like to see you. The panel.